think your head coach got small on, Brent. You gotta love what you've seen.
Hello again, YouTubers. This video I'm going to go over nitro engines, why they may not start, troubleshooting, how they work. Basically try to hit it all in one video. I will go ahead and tell you now this is going to be a long video, possibly 30 minutes or longer. I apologize, but there are a lot of things to cover. I'm going to go from how they work, to why they may not start, to troubleshooting them if they do not start, and then actually starting one and how they should be started, and just basically everything in between. So if it's a little long, I apologize, but I'm trying to get all the information out so people, there's been a lot of misinformation put out about nitro motors, how to diagnose them, how to troubleshoot them. So I'm putting out, I know a lot about nitro motors. I'm a mechanic. People have said in the past, by watching my videos, I'm not a mechanic because my hands aren't dirty. Well, I wash my hands, I take care of my hands because they're what make money for me. So first we're going to start off with how a nitro motor works. Now first I'm going to start off with different kinds of nitro motors. Nitro motors are a type of motor that utilizes compression and what's known as a glow plug to create combustion, to create a reciprocal motion. This is done, most nowadays are 2-stroke, but there was one time where OS did make 4-stroke nitro motors that had a camshaft, push rods, rocker arms, valves, all that good stuff. A lot of moving parts for a very simple engine. But I'm going to start off with pretty much the basics. I have 4 engines, well 6 engines, 7 engines, including the ones in my vehicles. I have 3.3 here, 3.3 here, and a 3.0 here. That number represents how many cc's it is. This one is a Pro 0.15. This is a 2.5 cc. The 0.15 is how many cubic inches it is. This is a TRX. These are both Traxxas engines. This was from my very first nitro vehicle that, wow, that was a while back. It was good, but they don't have, these Pro 0.15s really don't have a lot of power due to the engineering of them. The TRX 2.5 and 2.5R, the only difference between those two is the head. The 2.5R has a blue head. Basically, it has a larger head to dissipate more heat. I'll get into the head and all of that a little later on. But these are small blocks. Anything from about 0.19 down, that's usually going to be a small block. So these are small blocks. Then you get into the size mid blocks. They're from about 2.0, 2.1. Some of those may even be small blocks. And then you go even higher to I can't remember exactly what size it is, but the HPI 5.9, that's 5.9 cc's. I can't remember exactly. It's a little bit big. Those are big blocks. But this is a TRX 3.3. This is known as a big block. This one was in a very bad wreck. It was in a JADO, and it was going, we had geared it up. We were trying to break 100 mile an hour, me and some of my buddies. We were trying to break 100 mile an hour with a a nitro. We got very close. We got to 93 miles an hour, and then this happened. So, and the JADO's in pieces, so we're having to rebuild it. But you have mid blocks, and then you have big blocks. And you can see right here how big the big block is compared to the small block, the mid block. And then try to hold the small block as well. So you have the small block, the mid block, and then the big block. So mid being medium size, small being the smallest blocks, and then big being big blocks like you have with Chevrolet, Ford, Dodge. You have small blocks and big blocks. Just you usually don't have mid blocks like you do with nitro motors. I think I already covered that nitro motors work on compression. They use a certain type of fuel known as nitro. It's the reason it's called that is it has usually between 20 and 35% nitromethane, and the rest that would be from 80 to 65% methanol, which methanol is a very explosive alcohol. And then there's always a oil blend. I use Traxxas Top Fuel 20%. There are several reasons I like Traxxas Top Fuel 20%. I've been using it for years. I've never had a problem with it. Brakes Motors in Grade has a proprietary a blend of oil. Usually the oil that are in these fuels nowadays is a blend of castor oil and a synthetic oil. The reason I really like this is because you can actually run these motors until they're completely out of gas, and if you're only going to let it sit for max a week, you can just not have to worry about any type of after-run oil, because the oil left over after it had been running, there's always going to be that little bit of oil left in the motor. A lot of people use special types of after-run oil. All you really need is WD-40. It's flammable. It will not do anything adverse to the engine, and basically all you do is take out your glow plug, put some down into the cylinder, put some into the carburetor, open the carburetors all the way. There's different types of carburetors, I'll get to that, but just basically open it to wide open if it was running, shoot some WD-40 in it, and turn it over so you can make sure all the parts, basically that it's not dry, and also you're coating all the parts with an oil, because this nitromethane is a very bad substance. If you have a vehicle that has sat for a long period of time, you are going to have a problem with it, because this oil is known as hygroscopic. I believe that's the term. Hygroscopic basically means that this fuel likes to absorb moisture, water. Over time it will turn into a gel, somewhat, a very loose gel. And you definitely don't want that getting into your motor, especially not into your carburetor. So if it's been sitting for a while, you're going to want to take WD-40. Again, WD-40 is great for all kind of RC vehicles. All kind of different things on RC vehicles. But just take your fuel lines and your pressure lines. I'll get to what the pressure line is in a little while. But just take it off and use the WD-40, the little red stick that comes with it. Put it into the fuel line and spray it through, and then use an air compressor, or if you don't have that, just blow through it and get all the WD-40 out. It's great because it's flammable. So if any does get in your motor, it's just going to burn away. The one bad thing about WD-40 is it possibly could leave a little bit of carbon on your glow plug. It's never happened to me, and I've been using WD-40 as long as I've been around nitro. I prefer nitro mainly because that's where this hobby mainly started. You had nitro motors and you had brushed electric motors. Back in the 80s and 70s, they didn't have ready to run. Ready to run is basically you can take it out of the box, put a battery or fuel in it, and you can go. In 1986, Traxxas came out with the Ready to Run, which is basically a vehicle that is already put together. Before then, you always got a kit. You got all the parts and you had to put it together yourself. In 1986, Traxxas came out with the idea of, let's go ahead and put these together and we'll sell more. So that's basically what they did. So that's where Ready to Run comes from. Traxxas, thank you for that. I'm not a big fan of Traxxas vehicles unless it is a nitro chassis, and then I'll put an electric motor on it. My biggest thing with Traxxas is they use a lot of plastic parts when it comes to the chassis. HPI uses a lot of plastic parts when it comes to the suspension. So there's always that trade. Axial, they're mainly electric motors nowadays, but they used to do nitro vehicles. They use nothing but plastic. I really don't like Axial products because I had SCX10, and in order for me to get it to competition status, I had to pay $380 for the vehicle itself, and I ended up putting about $900 into it so it could compete. Not only compete, but compete and win. And so now I'm going to get to how nitro motors work. Usually on the back of a nitro motor, you have a, especially on-road nitro motors, you have either a pull start, an electric start nowadays, or HPI has a roto start where you basically have sort of like a drill that has a shaft coming out of it, and you put it on a coupler that goes onto the back of the back plate, and it has a gear, and the gear turns the starter shaft, which is this part right here on the back plate. That in turn will turn the motor over. What happens then is, first you have to prime the engine. I'll get to that in a little while. That will pull air fuel mixture down into the crankcase, and then up into the it pulls it down through the carburetor and into the crankcase, and then eventually up into the combustion chamber. The head, one thing I'm going to go ahead and show real quick. The heads on these are nothing but they hold the glow plug, and they also dissipate away the heat. That's why they're so big, to get rid of all the heat, because these create a lot of heat. Marine nitro motors have a water jacket around them, so water goes through it, so they're water cooled. There's also bump start, which there's a little metal box with a little wheel under it that's powered by 1 or 2 motors, and basically you put the vehicle on it, and I'll demonstrate with my HPI. I have a bump box, I just didn't bring it out. Right here is the flywheel. The rubber wheel will contact the flywheel and turn the motor over. So basically, what happens is a air fuel mixture is brought into the crankcase and then up into the combustion chamber, and that's when the sleeve and piston comes in. there are little holes in the side of the sleeve to let air into the combustion chamber. This right here, once I put the piston in, that will be the combustion chamber. So when the piston comes down, this is how they work once you get them started. When the piston comes down, the first port to open is the exhaust port. The hot escaping gases are escaping at a very fast rate, and that creates a small vacuum in the combustion chamber. The next to open are the intake ports on the side. These have 2 main intake ports and 1 boost port. The main intake ports, inside on the crankcase, there's little bevels in the metal, so these are not blocked. The air-fuel mixture comes in from the side, and also when it comes all the way down to the bottom of its travel, known as bottom dead center, the boost port is open, which sort of, basically as the name implies, boosts the amount of air-fuel mixture that comes into it. And then over and over, it does that over and over again. So that's the basics of how they work. And like I said, the compression is used to ignite the fuel, basically detonation. Detonation is something you don't want in a car that works with spark plugs. That's why they have higher and higher octane. That's all octane is in vehicles. Octane doesn't give you more power until you get to the very high numbers like 97, basically 100 and more. That's when you get into racing octanes. They do have more of a punch. Basically, the higher the octane, the fewer impurities, the more it has been refined. But that really has nothing to do with nitros. I just figured I'd add that into it, into the whole thing, the whole video. But that's how they work. They work off combustion. One of the first things that, since I have this out, if you can push your piston, if you can take your sleeve out and you can push your piston all the way through the top of the sleeve, you've lost compression. There is something known as a pinch with nitro engines. When a nitro engine is brand new, there is a basically no tolerance. The piston and the sleeve are rubbing against each other. Breaking them in is a must when you do nitro motors for maximum power, maximum life. Nitro motors are based off how many gallons can go through them within how long you have them. So that's how they're based. Their life expectancy is based on. The carburetors on nitro motors, there's 2 main types. You have the barrel type, which is basically a cylinder that has a hole drilled through it, and as this arm is rotated, it opens more and more of that hole, so more air can come through, which in turn lets more fuel in. And then you have the slide type carburetors. I'm going to take it off this engine. Slide type carburetors also have a cylinder, but the cylinder simply pulls to the side. They slide to the side. That's what you have on more high performance motors. And another thing, you can see how small the carburetor inlet is on each of these motors. This one is bigger, but once it gets down to about the middle, it actually gets about to the same size as this. That creates a Venturi effect. A Venturi effect, but it speeds up the amount of the air coming in speeds up, and that creates a vacuum, which will suck the fuel into the motor. One thing a lot of people think is that these motors, when they're priming them and stuff, that the motor and the carburetor is actually sucking fuel from the fuel tank over to the carburetor. That is not true at all. The way fuel gets to a carburetor in a nitro vehicle is the exhaust gases from the exhaust, usually they're known as resonators, exhaust pipes, but there is a tube that goes from a little an outlet, basically something that a tube can fit over, and then it goes to the fuel tank. This pressurizes the fuel tank. This pressure feeds fuel to the carburetor, allowing the engine to start. So now I'm going to start going over troubleshooting. Say you've got an RC vehicle, or you had an RC vehicle and it's been sitting, or you just got it and it's not wanting to start. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to need a glow igniter if you don't have a Traxxas with the Easy Start system. I'll get to that after this. You're going to want to remove your glow plug, and you're going to want to check it. These are internal combustion engines, so for them to work you need air, fuel, and some type of ignition source. You're going to take it and simply put it in your glow plug igniter, and it's going to glow. That little filament is actually platinum. It's not a lot. It is a very small amount of platinum, not even a gram, not even close to a gram. I will go ahead and say this little tool I made myself. It is a 5/16 socket, and I took some dense foam and I put it down inside the socket and super glued it in place. And basically what happens is it works like a spark plug socket that has that little piece of rubber, so it'll stay inside the socket. So the little shaft right here gets stuck in the foam and it'll stay in place. There's also a little copper or brass washer. That's what this right here is. You may not be able to see because it is quite small. That seals the glow plug. A lot of people, when they first start a brand new engine, they loosen the glow plug by 1/2 of a turn. I don't believe in doing that. And basically they do that because there's so much compression that it's hard to for it to turn over, especially with a pull start. So of course, the first thing you're going to want to check is your glow plug. If it glows, that's great. That means you're getting some type of ignition. That's how you check it with a regular glow plug igniter. The way you do it with the Easy Start on a Traxxas vehicle is first you're going to want to unhook one of the leads from the Easy Start motor. I personally don't like these. This is going to get changed out to a pull start, but I like them for breaking them in. But you take this off. All this is, it's just like any other Easy Start. I just add a lot of heat shrink onto it, because if you flip this and especially if you're on asphalt or concrete, it will rip the wire. So I add a lot of heat shrink, but all this is a wire that is connected to a spring. So you're going to, again, take your glow plug out. There's a glow plug. Put it into the spring. Wrong direction. And then anybody who knows Traxxas is very familiar with this little wand. It has a 1700 milliamp hour 6-cell nickel metal hydride battery. A lot of people say they have used 9 volts batteries and stuff like that to do these. You do not want to use that much voltage. glow plugs, the only amount of voltage you need is 1.5 volts usually. For most of the time, probably about 99% of the time, well 90% of the time. And now all you do is put it in place. With these, if there's a problem, when you hit this button, if this light doesn't light up, that means there is no circuit, your glow plug is bad. That's one thing that's really nice about these Traxxas. But if you want to check it by hand, you just take it out, press the button, and it will glow. If it doesn't glow, you need a new glow plug. So that's how you check it on these. If your glow plug is bad, you need to replace it, and that could be your problem. So install this back. This is a T-Max. This is a Revo. This is a HPI Nitro RS43 Evo Plus. So put all this stuff back in place so I don't have to worry about it next time I try to go run it. I do have a pull start ready for it. I just don't feel like taking all of it off at the moment. Another reason is it may not start is your carburetor settings are bad. The best thing to do in this instance is check your manufacturer's manual and set it back to manufacturer settings. From there, it should start most of the time. If it doesn't start, and if your glow plug's fine, then there could be an air leak. There's several places that air can leak from. It can leak at where the carburetor goes because there's seals there that can go bad. It can leak at the front bearing because these crankshafts run on bearings. It can leak at two places on the back plate, the starter shaft or where the back plate comes against the block of the motor itself, or it could leak at the exhaust, the header. If there's any type of leak in your exhaust, you're not going to get the correct amount of pressure into your fuel tank, and then you are going to have a lean running engine. So the lean running engine is going to idle at a higher RPM, and you will have a hell of a time trying to get it tuned correctly. Let me try to remember everything that I want to go over. A flooded engine. After you another way how to prime an engine. There are several ways you can do it. Like I said before, you have a pressure line. It goes from the exhaust pipe to the fuel tank. You can take it off the exhaust pipe and blow into it, and you need to watch the fuel go to the carburetor. Once it goes to the carburetor, stop blowing. Or if you flood it, if you keep going, it could flood the motor, and basically what happens then is hydrostatic lock. This basically, usually with a motor, it will spin over because you're compressing air, the air-fuel mixture. Fluids cannot be compressed. They can, but under extremely high pressure. These motors definitely can't do it. Most of the time, you're probably gonna either bend a connecting rod, break the connecting rod. Shit, what's that part called? I'm a damn mechanic and I can't even remember. Basically, the part that connects the connecting rod to the piston. Or you could, at worst case, break the little piece off the back of the crankshaft that the connecting rod connects to. That is worst case scenario. Usually you'll just bend a connecting rod and then you'll have to order a new one, install it, and do all that. When a motor is flooded, what you're going to want to do is take out your glow plug. I'm not going to do it because it's very simple to show. Take out your glow plug, take your vehicle, turn it upside down, and just give a few pulls on your pull start. Because right now, if I try to pull, there's compression inside. Because with a glow plug in, compression is created. And just pull it about 5-10 times and get the extra fuel out of there. Another thing you can do to maybe help start the motor is put a drop of fuel, take the glow plug out and put a drop of fuel right on top of the piston. And then before you put the glow plug in, pull the, either basically turn the motor over a couple times so it's not 100% fluid, it's vapor. You want fluid vapor, not a fluid. That's why when you first start up a nitro engine and you go to give it some throttle, if you just give it a small amount of throttle, it's going to sound sort of sick. That's because the fuel is not atomizing yet. Once it gets to its operating temperature, which is usually 200 to 250 degrees, it'll atomize before it gets up into the combustion chamber. It'll atomize in the down in the crankcase. I'm trying to remember everything so I don't forget, so I don't leave out anything. I'm going to go over how to start a RC vehicle. It's not hard at all. I'm going to start this one. Well, yeah, I'll start this one, I don't care. And a pull start. With a pull start, I already have fuel. I have fuel in here. It's halfway full. This is a second generation Revo. All these wires are bears because I got this in a trade, and I got 2 Revos. One is the brand new generation, and this one is supposed to have a radio back box, but it doesn't, so all these wires are just out, but I'm going to clean them up eventually. So basically all you do is you take your glow plug igniter. There's a couple different types there's 2 types of glow plug igniters. You have this type and you have the clip-on type. I prefer this type because this type is the one that goes on and spins on. It locks itself on. You also have the clip-on type. Some of them also have a little readout of the voltage. Another thing nice about those is if the glow plug is bad, you're not going to see anything, especially if you know the igniter is fully charged. There will not be any type of conductance, so there will not be a circuit there for it to complete, and there will not be any read of any type of voltage. So with this, before I even started, I'm going to put my finger over the exhaust port, give it a few tugs until there's fuel at the carburetor, put the glow plug igniter in place, and then saw me there at the very end. You really don't want to put one quick way to stop a RC engine from running is placing your finger over the exhaust, and the back pressure will cause the piston to stop. Anytime you're running a nitro, when you're done running it, physically spin the flywheel and bring it to bottom dead center. I'll show with this. You have top dead center, which is when the crankshaft is all the way at the 12 o'clock position and the piston is all the way up in its bore. If you leave it there, the sleeve is not going to. The sleeve is made out of. You hear ABC: aluminum, brass, and chrome. Aluminum being the piston and the connecting rod. Usually the piston is what they're talking about. Brass being what the sleeve is made out of, and it is chrome plated. The brass is chrome plated. If you leave it up at the top position, when it tries to cool down, the brass is going to contract more than the aluminum. So it's not going to be able to contract to its normal size, and you are going to reduce not only engine life, but the amount of power that it can put out. So that is how, so always, when you're done with it, drop the piston. Like with this one, I'm just going to spin it manually. Sometimes it's a little hard, but once you feel it go, once you feel that hard, once you feel it basically sort of lock up and then go past that, you're past the compression, and then spin it a little bit more and it'll bring it down to bottom dead center. And bottom dead center is when the piston is all the way down below the boost port. So everything can contract to its original size. But these are always, that's the one thing about nitro engines, is this up and down motion is always going to create wear. Over time you will have to replace the sleeve and piston. They usually come as a set. If you have a lathe, there is a way to re-pinch this. I'm not going to get into that. There are videos on how to re-pinch a nitro sleeve, but basically all it does is you take a ring and a lathe, and it squeezes down on this and makes the top smaller, so you get your compression back. Some sleeves on some of the racing engines, you're looking at hundreds of dollars, not hundreds, $100, $120, $130, especially in countries like in Europe. HPI is out of Europe, and sadly right now Ripmax has bought them out. This vehicle was very hard for me to find. I scoured the entire internet and found two, and I quickly ordered this one. It's hard to find this vehicle with this body and this wheel setup. I mean, as you can see, it's a 69 Mustang black. It's a fastback with green wheels. And this is also a nitro that works off pull start, as you can see from this right here. And there's an opening at the top for you to put your glow plug starter down in. You push it down, twist, and it goes on. I like the twist type more than the clip-on, because one thing you can do with these is when you first start up the nitro, the motor, the glow plug, once you take this off, the glow plug may cool down a little and not give you good enough detonation. You can leave this on, as long as you're not going over a lot of any bumps. Leave this on until it gets a little warm. You don't want to leave it on until it gets up to operating temperature, because remember, this is a battery right here. And then once it gets up a little warmer to where you don't think that once you take it off it may bog down or shut off, you can remove it and have fun. As long as you make sure that fuel is in here, these things can run all day. I prefer nitro over electric. I can't remember if I've already gone over this. I've tried to do this video 3 times. This is the 3rd time I've tried to do this video, so if I repeated this, I apologize. But nitro engines is where this hobby started, is where RC vehicles started, because they are very small and they can be put on this. There were also brushed motors, but they did not have the fancy electronic speed controllers that have proportional, which means maybe give it 1% or 1.5% or 25%. It was either low, medium, high, which would be full throttle, and sometimes reverse, or off. Or some of them were just low and high and off. Basically, that it had a little wiper that would that had different contacts that it would touch, and the different contacts had different transistors, I believe, resistors, excuse me, yeah, resistors that would drop the voltage down to different levels. Like low would have a less voltage than medium, and medium would have a higher voltage than low, but lower voltage than high, and then high would have the high, just straight battery going to the motor. Nowadays we have, in about, I believe it was the 90s, brushless systems started coming in and they started being cheap. Now you can get a good brushless system and motor for less than $100, which really isn't that bad, but then you have to look at LiPos, which are the best batteries to use. Some people use nickel metal hydride, but I personally don't like nickel metal hydride because you notice the voltage drop very quickly. LiPos are expensive. I use Fluorion. The cheapest I use is Fluorion and Admiral. I like Admiral the most because they that company puts U.S. veterans to work. Fluorion, good price, they're nice. And then you have like SMC and I believe it's SPC. There you have soft case LiPos, which basically, like I said, soft case, and then you have hard case, which has a plastic case around the cells. Some tracks where you race may say that you have to have a hard case LiPo. I have both, soft case and hard case. And so LiPos are the way to go, but the most expensive batteries, LiPos, you can really look at are called max amps. Pretty much you get what you pay for. They're above $200 per battery. People say that electric is cheaper than nitro, but you have to think about it. With nitro, yes, you do have to continually buy fuel, glow plugs, clutch shoes because they will wear out, cylinder liners, pistons, but that's money spent over a gradual period of time. Electric, you're having to buy all of that. You're having to buy the vehicle, the batteries, and the charger. And you always want to get a good charger. Do not skimp when it comes to the charger. But this is a video about nitros. Now I'm going to get into a little bit about troubleshooting your car. Let's say that it has a very high idle. Of course, you're going to want to reduce the idle gap smaller, or you could richen it by turning the low speed needle counterclockwise, which will bring in more fuel, which will slow the motor down, slow it down by how fast it spins. Most people say that you get the most power out of a nitro by going somewhat lean, because you get a bigger boom, and also it gets in and out faster than if it's richer. But if it's, you have to find that fine line between the two, because if it's too lean, it's going to overheat. If it's too rich, it's going to be too cool, and either one of those is going to damage your engine. And well, not damage, but it's not going to have the life that it should. You got to find that fine line. But the thing about nitros nowadays compared to what they were 15-20 years ago is you can set your carburetor and leave it. You don't have to mess with it every time. That maybe if the weather changes a little, if it gets cold outside, you may have to richen things a little, because cold air is denser, so there's more air coming in, so you're going to need more fuel. If it gets hotter outside, you're going to need to lean it out because there's less air. But you got to be careful when it's hot out, because the ambient air temperature, when it's running across these fins, it's not going to remove as much heat as when it's cool. I'm still going to start this one. If you get on the gas and as soon as you give it full throttle, it bogs down. Most of the time your high-speed needle is too rich, so simply tighten it down a little bit. Always do 1/16 of a turn increments. I usually do about 1/8 of a turn. If I know exactly what's going on, I'll do 1/4 of a turn. But then say that say you've got your idle grade and you give it just a little bit of amount of gas and it starts going, but it's really rumbly. It sounds sick. And then when you let off the gas, it stops. That's usually a sign that your low speed needle is too rich. If you go for a high speed pass or you give full throttle and then let off and the engine shuts off, that's usually a sign that your high speed needle is too lean, your idle is not set correctly, or the low speed needle is also too lean or possibly too rich. It all comes down to those three main screws: the idle set screw, which sets the idle gap, the low speed needle, and the high speed needle. So there's a lot of different variables basically that are put into account when you're doing this. Let me try to think of another problem that you could encounter. Basically, if you're not getting maximum power, you're going to want to lean out the high-speed needle a little. If the idle is too high, again, like I said, make the idle gap smaller or richen the low-speed needle a little. But most of the time, the manufacturer's settings are very close to what the motor needs. As motors get older, say a motor has an air leak, it's going to be lean, so you're going to have to let more air in, more fuel in. They can be a pain in the butt to tune, but they will still work. Say you start losing compression. It will still work, but you won't get near the power that you should, because when it explodes, some of the exhaust will go by the piston. You're just not getting the seal that you're supposed to between the piston and the liner. I believe I've touched on pretty much everything on nitros except starting this one. Let me put some fuel in it real quick. One thing that's really nice about these is it basically primes itself. One thing I did not mention with some vehicles when it comes to priming it is some have priming bulbs on them or a priming pump. This vehicle has one of those. Right here is a little pump that will pump fuel from the tank to the carburetor. Once fuel gets to the carburetor, you pump it 2 more times and that will prime it. You can also get little in line, put it in line with your fuel line. They're little balls that have a one-way ball valve inside of it, and you can prime it that way, and that will send fuel to your carburetor. I don't use those, but this one right here, which is the T-Max, it is started. I prime it by, let me get my wand, wherever the hell I put it, right here. I have to cover the exhaust, which is over here. And a lot of people say you need to turn on all my servos are where they're supposed to be. You should never have to give your vehicle gas for it to start. It should be able to start on its own and keep an idle, like this one did when I started it. It started up, had an idle, and did not move. So that is great for that. So with this one, all I do is put this on there, put my finger over the exhaust port, turn it over and watch the fuel line and watch the fuel go through. Okay, it's to the carburetor now, and now I just turn it over. And with these, it has, with Traxxas vehicles, it has this little red clip that pinches the fuel line, and it will stop the fuel from coming through the fuel line to the carburetor, and the engine will stop. So right now I need to quickly, it did not run for long, but you always want the piston to be at bottom dead center. Sometimes it can be a little hard, especially with these, some of these motors. I'll get to it. I need something to get to it a little easier, because this flywheel, like these two have a opening on the bottom, so you can possibly use a bump box to start it, and you can turn the motor over at the bottom. With this, the T-Max, you have to get to it from right here. And there we go. It goes past that part where it's really hard to turn, and then spin it to the bottom. And it's down at bottom dead center, or the bottom of its travel. So everything can... the only one I did not start was this one, and I will start it real quick. So it got to the, you couldn't hear it, but once it got to the carburetor, I hit it 2 more times and I could hear it go into the carburetor, and that primes the motor. Spin the motor around so it's at bottom dead center, so everything can contract. Even though I didn't let these motors heat up, I just demonstrated them starting and how I prime them, but that's how I do it. I've never taken the line off the exhaust pipe and blew air through it. One thing with nitro is it's very toxic. If it gets in your skin in any way, it can cause a lot of bad problems. I actually had a skin condition because some fuel got put where it wasn't supposed to be, and it got into my clothes. The fumes got into my clothes. I can't remember, it starts with a D. But basically I had little scabs that would pop up. Basically just a skin condition, but nitro fuel is not a fuel to play with. If you get it in your eye, flush your eye out immediately. But I will say with this one, the idle was a little high because I needed a transmitter on, because it will pull the, it has the rotating type carburetor on it, but it actually has a more high performance rotating type carburetor. The big thing with those is you really can't put a Venturi in it, except if you make this larger, and it'll, yeah, it will create that large amount will get squeezed into a small area, so it has to move faster, which creates a vacuum. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that when air moves faster, like with a wing, when air moves when air goes over it, the air going over the top is having to move faster than the air going over the bottom because it has this shape, so it creates a vacuum which lifts the vehicle up. The airplane up. That's sort of the same thing with Venturi, but instead of lifting something, it's pulling fuel into the carburetor and down into the engine. So I think I've hit everything with nitro engines, how they work, if it doesn't start, what you should do. And again, I said it was going to be a long video. I apologize it was so long, but there's a lot of things to touch a lot of things to go over when you're talking about nitro engines. There's so many parts to them, so many things that can go wrong, things that have to be done. Like now I'm going to have to, since I pinched the fuel line, that means all of the fuel was burnt, so now the only thing left in here is oil. So I don't have to worry about putting any type of afterrun oil. WD-40 works perfect. You don't need to go out and buy some fancy stuff. If you're a racer, you may want to, but I doubt racers are going to be watching videos like this. Racers will already know what to do with nitro engines, how to tune them, such like that. So I think I'm going to stop it there. I've said enough. If you have any questions, please comment. Please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want more videos like this, because I love RCs. I will be always getting more. I have 2 more coming a little bit after the first, a RS4 3 Drift and a RS4 2. So those are going to be nice. I want a nitro drift vehicle. I already have a regular one, and these are electric. I have 3 RS4s at the moment. I'll have 6 after the first. When I get my next check after the first, I'll be getting a super RS4, which is closer to an 8th scale. They're bigger than this. So I hope you liked the video. And until next time, peace. Hope you enjoy. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like.